Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our 10-minute Bible lesson. We appreciate you tuning in today. We've been doing our studies from the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. I was going to ask you a question. Do you think that maybe Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is the best sermon that's ever been preached? I kind of think it is. I would have to say yes. Now, in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, there are several subjects that he covers. He covers a lot of things. And here, recently, we've been looking at this particular thing. Just let me read and see if I can explain what I mean. Jesus is saying, he's been saying this, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, but I say to you." So we've been kind of doing some of the things that Jesus has been teaching. Now, what is it exactly that Jesus means when he says, "You have heard that it has been said to those of old"? I believe he's talking about things that were taught in the Old Testament. And then he says, "But I say to you." Now, the reason that I'm mentioning that to you, and the reason that I think it's significant, is that Jesus is putting his own words and his own sayings on the same authority as the Old Testament, or you could say as the Word of God. And that makes sense because Jesus was actually God manifest in the flesh. He was the divine Son of God. So it makes sense that what he said would be the Word of God. So let's go ahead and read a little bit about what I'm talking about. This is in Matthew chapter 5, verse 33. And so Jesus says this. He says, "Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord.'" Now, I suppose that swearing an oath to God was something that was going on during Jesus's time. In fact, I would just say that it's been going on for thousands of years. That people have been swearing and using the name of God like if it makes like making it into an oath. So if you could look at it this way, what they were doing was swearing to God to validate the truthfulness about what they were saying. So I just think that that's interesting. So they wanted to make sure that people understood that what they said was true. And so that's what Jesus said. He says, "You've heard that it's been said of old not to swear falsely, but perform your oaths to the Lord." Now, let's look and see what Jesus says. And that's in Matthew chapter 5, verses 34 and 35. So it says this. It says, "But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king." So Jesus is saying to us that we shouldn't swear an oath at all. And that is to say, to swear an oath to guarantee our statements are true. He said that we shouldn't do that at all. Now, I'm also thinking that during Jesus's time, that men, when they swore an oath, sometimes they wouldn't swear an oath by God, but they may swear an oath by heaven. Or they may swear, like saying, "By heaven I swear this." Or they may swear an oath by earth. Or they may even swear an oath by Jerusalem. So I think it's interesting that they were careful about how they framed their oath. That is to say, according to William Barclay's commentary, he was saying that the Jews, that if they now, I don't know if this is true or not. This is in his commentary. It kind of makes sense. But he was saying that if the Jews swore an oath by God and using God's name, then they considered that really binding. And they just rigidly had to do it. But if they swore an oath by something else, like by heaven or by earth or by Jerusalem, then somehow it was not quite as binding. And I think that's really interesting. So in Barclay's commentary, he said this. He said it was. He said, let me just read it. He said, it had become far too common a custom to introduce a statement by saying, by thy life, so and so and so and so, or by my head, this statement is so and so and so, or they may even say this, may I never see the comfort of Israel if so and so and so and so is not true. Well, but they were really careful about when they swore an oath and used God's name. That made a difference. So somehow they thought, it seems like in their minds they could take God and separate God from other things. And if they separated God from part of their life in other things, that it was okay to be able to swear things and those things not be binding, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense completely or not, but Jesus said, no, you can't do that. You can't swear by heaven because it's God's throne, and you can't swear by earth because it's his footstool, and you can't swear by Jerusalem because it's the city of the great king. He said, no, you can't do that. Well, let's go ahead and look at the rest of what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, verses 36 and 37. This is kind of the sum of it, and this is really, really good. So he says this, he says, now remember, he said you shouldn't swear an oath at all. And then he says this, nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. Hey, listen, if we could swear somehow and cause our hair to turn dark again, we would probably do that. But Jesus said you can't do that. But here's what I want you to get. What Jesus says is this. But let your yes be yes, and your no, no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one. So if we're telling the truth, then yes or no should be enough without adding an oath to swear to a guarantee of the truthfulness of what we're saying. So really, Jesus is saying you shouldn't add those things. You should just say yes or no. Now, least you think that's an easy thing to do. Let me just challenge you to do this. Think about what I'm saying, and this week, the next time you answer somebody a question or whatever, just answer with yes, or just answer with no, and see how easy that is to do. It's not that easy, I can tell you. So that's what Jesus said. We don't need to add things onto our yeses or our nos. In fact, he said this, that if we do that, anything we add more to that, he said, actually, that's not coming from me. That's coming from the evil one. So what an interesting part of teaching that Jesus gives us today. And it's about oaths, but it's even more about keeping our word and being truthful, because truth does matter. Listen, there is absolute truth, and it matters when we tell the truth. And our word should mean a lot. And let our yeses be yes and our no's be no's. Well, listen, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it, and hope you'll tune in next time.